The rain fell in steady sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of the small-town diner's parking lot. The neon sign flickered, casting a weak red glow over the faded asphalt. An old man stood under the awning, his weathered jacket soaked at the shoulders. His name was Elias Kane, though no one in this town knew it. To them, he was just the quiet stranger who came in every Thursday, ordered black coffee, and sat in the corner booth with a dog-eared book. His hands, rough as sandpaper, bore faint scars, and a faded tattoo of a trident peeked from beneath his sleeve. On his lapel, a single pin, a tarnished bronze star, caught the light when he moved. Inside, the diner buzzed with the usual evening crowd. Truckers, locals, and a group of college kids in the back, their laughter sharp and careless. Elias sipped his coffee, his eyes scanning the pages of The Old Man and the Sea, though his attention drifted to the window. The rain reminded him of nights and places he'd rather forget. Nangarhar, Ramadi, the jungles of Mindanao. Places where silence was survival and noise meant death. The bell above the door jingled, and a young man strode in, his phone already raised, live streaming to an audience Elias couldn't see. He was lanky, with a shaved head and a t-shirt emblazoned with a protest slogan. "Yo, what's good fam?" he said into the camera, his voice cutting through the diner's hum. "We're out here exposing the truth tonight." He panned the phone across the room, lingering on Elias. "Check this guy out. Old-school military vibes. Bet he's got some war stories he doesn't want us to know about." Elias didn't look up. His fingers tightened slightly around the coffee mug, but his face remained unreadable. The kid, his name was Jace according to the stream's overlay, kept talking. "These guys, man, they wear their little pins like trophies, but what's the real cost? Imperialism. What? You know the deal." He zoomed in on Elias's bronze star pin, his tone mocking. "What's that for, Grandpa? Bombing villages?" The diner went quiet. A waitress froze mid-step, her tray wobbling. A trucker at the counter turned, his jaw tight. Elias set his book down, his movements deliberate. "You don't know what you're talking about, son," he said, his voice low, steady like gravel underfoot. Jace smirked, emboldened by the red dot blinking on his phone. "Oh, I know. You're one of those heroes who thinks you're untouchable. Bet you've got skeletons in your closet." He stepped closer, pulling something from his pocket. A lighter. "Let's make a statement." Before anyone could react, he reached out, yanked the bronze star pin from Elias's jacket and flicked the lighter. The tiny flame danced as he held it to the pin's ribbon, the fabric curling and blackening. "This is for the truth," Jace said, dropping the smoldering pin onto the table. The diner erupted. The trucker stood, fists clenched. The waitress shouted for Jace to leave. But Elias didn't move. His eyes, gray as the storm outside, locked onto Jace's. There was no anger, only a weight, a depth that made Jace falter for a split second. "You're making a mistake," Elias said, almost too quiet to hear. Jace laughed, but it was forced. "Whatever, man. Keep your secrets." He turned back to his phone, narrating to his audience. "See? They never own up to it. Just dodge and deflect." Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Two black SUVs pulled into the lot, their engines silent, their windows tinted. No one in the diner noticed except Elias. His gaze flicked to the window, then back to his coffee. The door opened again and two men in dark suits stepped inside. They moved with purpose, their polished shoes clicking against the linoleum. One carried a briefcase, the other had an earpiece. The diner fell silent again, this time for a different reason. "Mr. Kane," the man with the briefcase said, his voice clipped. "We need you to come with us." Jace's phone lowered slightly, his bravado fading. "Whoa, what's this? You some kind of spook?" he asked, but his voice cracked. The men ignored him, their focus on Elias. Elias stood slowly, his joints creaking. He picked up the charred pin, slipping it into his pocket. "Tell my friend at the counter to keep the coffee warm," he said to the waitress, who nodded, wide-eyed. He followed the men toward the door, pausing only to glance at Jace. "You wanted the truth," he said. "Be careful what you wish for." The SUVs vanished into the night, leaving the diner in stunned silence. Jace's live stream was still running, his followers flooding the chat with questions. "Who was that guy? What just happened?" Jace tried to laugh it off, but his hands shook as he ended the stream. Back at the counter, the trucker leaned toward the waitress. "You ever hear of Operation Nightshade?" he whispered. She shook her head. "Heard stories. Classified stuff. Guy like that, he's no ordinary vet." The waitress stared at the empty booth, Elias's book still open on the table. A single page fluttered in the draft from the door, revealing a faded photograph tucked inside. A younger Elias in fatigues standing beside a helicopter in a desert. Behind him a name was scrawled, Warlock. What's the story behind Elias Kane? Who are those men and what secrets does he carry? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you know a quiet hero like Elias? Subscribe for part 2 to uncover the truth. Don't let these stories fade. The black SUVs cut through the misty night, their tires hissing on the wet highway. Elias Kane sat in the back of the lead vehicle, his hands folded, the charred bronze star pin heavy in his pocket. The man with the briefcase rode beside him, scrolling through a tablet. The glow illuminated his sharp features, but he said nothing. The other man, the one with the earpiece, drove in silence, occasionally glancing at Elias in the rearview mirror. Outside, the world blurred, streetlights, billboards, the occasional flash of a passing car. Elias's mind, though, was elsewhere. Kandahar, 2003. A night much like this, but with the acrid smell of smoke and the crack of gunfire. The diner scene replayed in his head. That kid, Jace, with his phone and his lighter, burning a symbol Elias had carried through hell. He didn't blame the boy. Ignorance was loud, always had been. But the pin wasn't just metal and ribbon, it was a promise, a memory of men who never came home. Elias's fingers brushed the tattoo on his forearm, the trident's edges faded but unyielding. Warlock. A name he hadn't heard spoken in 20 years. Where are we going? Elias asked, his voice steady, cutting through the hum of the engine. The man with the briefcase looked up. You'll see soon enough, Mr. Kane. It's time-sensitive. His tone was professional, but there was a deference in it, a recognition of something larger. Elias didn't press. He'd played this game before, classified briefings, midnight extractions. The Pentagon didn't send suits and SUVs for small talk. Back at the diner, the mood had shifted. The waitress, Clara, wiped down Elias's booth, her hands lingering on his book. The trucker, still at the counter, scrolled through his phone, muttering. Found something, he said, showing her a grainy forum post from a veteran's site. It mentioned Operation Nightshade, a rumored Black Ops mission in Afghanistan. No details, just whispers of a team led by a man called Warlock. Saved a whole unit, the trucker read aloud. Disappeared after. Files sealed tighter than Fort Knox. Clara frowned, glancing at the door. You think that's him? Bet my rig on it, the trucker said. Kid with the phone's gonna regret that stunt. Jace, meanwhile, was back in his apartment, his livestream long ended but his phone still buzzing with notifications. His followers were relentless. Who was that guy? What's Nightshade? Spill the tea. He tried to brush it off, posting a quick clip mocking spooky government types, but his usual swagger felt hollow. The image of Elias's calm, piercing eyes stuck with him. So did the SUVs. He opened his laptop, searching for Operation Nightshade. The results were sparse, redacted documents, vague blog posts, and one cryptic comment. Warlock's still out there. You don't find him. He finds you. The SUVs pulled into a nondescript industrial park, its chain-link fence topped with razor wire. A single floodlight cast long shadows across a low concrete building. No signs, no markings. The man with the earpiece parked and opened Elias's door. This way, sir, he said, the sir carrying weight. Inside, the building was a maze of stark hallways. Elias was led to a small room with a steel table, a laptop, and a single chair. On the table lay a folder, its edges worn, stamped with classified in red ink. The man with the briefcase opened it, revealing a photograph of a younger Elias, lean, bearded, standing in a desert with a rifle slung across his chest. Behind him, a team of operators, their faces blurred. The man tapped the photo. This was you, 2003. Operation Nightshade. You pulled 16 men out of an ambush in Kandahar. No casualties on your side. That's not just skill. That's legend. Elias's jaw tightened. Why dig this up now? The man slid the laptop toward him. We have a situation. Someone's leaking Nightshade intel. Old enemies are stirring, names you buried. We need you to verify what's real and what's not. He paused, his voice softening. And there's something else. Your team, one of them still alive. Elias froze. His team. He'd watched them fall one by one in missions that never made the news. The last he'd heard, he was the only one left. Who? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man hesitated. We'll get to that. But first we need your expertise. You in? Elias leaned back, his eyes on the folder. The weight of the past pressed against him. The screams, the sand, the promises he'd made to men who trusted him. He thought of the diner, of Jace's lighter, of the bronze star now scorched but unbroken. He thought of Clara, the waitress who'd kept his coffee warm. And he thought of the name Warlock, a ghost he'd tried to bury. "I'm in," he said. The man nodded, closing the folder. "Good. We move at dawn." Outside the rain had stopped. The floodlight flickered, casting the industrial park in fleeting darkness. Somewhere, a phone pinged with a new post, a blurry photo of Elias stepping into the SUV, uploaded anonymously to Jace's livestream chat. The caption read, "You burned the wrong man's pin. What secrets does Operation Nightshade hold? Who from Elias's past is still alive and what's at stake?" Share your guesses in the comments. Have you ever met someone whose story changed you? Subscribe for the final part to uncover the truth. Honor the quiet heroes. The concrete room felt colder now, the hum of the overhead lights barely audible over the pulse in Elias Kane's ears. The folder on the table lay closed, but its weight seemed to fill the space. Operation Nightshade. A name that carried the ghosts of Kandahar, sand-choked nights, the crack of AKs, the faces of men he'd sworn to bring home. Elias's fingers brushed the scorched bronze star pin in his pocket, its edges rough against his calloused skin. The man with the briefcase, Agent Harper, he'd finally introduced himself, stood by the door watching Elias with a mix of respect and urgency. "You said one of my team is alive," Elias said, his voice low but firm. "Who?" Harper hesitated, then opened the laptop. A grainy video feed flickered to life. A man in his late 50s, gaunt, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. He sat in what looked like a makeshift safe house, his eyes scanning something off-screen. Elias's breath caught. "Reyes," he whispered. Sergeant Marco Reyes, his spotter during Nightshade. The man who'd taken a bullet to cover their retreat, whose dog tags Elias had carried for 2 decades, believing him dead. "He's been off-grid since 2005, Harper said. "Turned up in Istanbul last month, working with a group trying to sell Nightshade intel. Names, locations, tactics. We don't know if he's a traitor or a prisoner. That's why we need you." Elias's mind raced. Reyes alive. The man who'd shared his last cigarette under a blood-red sky, who'd laughed about opening a bar in Mexico when they got out. Betrayal didn't fit. But 20 years changed people. Elias nodded slowly. "What's the play?" Harper slid a dossier across the table. "Extraction. You verify his identity, assess his loyalty. If he's clean, we bring him home. If not," he didn't finish. "He didn't need to." The next morning the diner was abuzz. Clara, the waitress, had saved Elias's book, tucking it behind the counter. The trucker, now a regular fixture, showed her a new post on his phone, a screenshot of Jace's live stream now viral with thousands of comments. "That's Warlock. My dad served with him. Legend. Kid's gonna learn respect the hard way." Clara scrolled, her eyes lingering on a photo someone had dug up. Elias, younger, in fatigues, standing beside a helicopter. The caption read, "Hero of Nightshade. Still out there." Jace, meanwhile, was spiraling. His apartment was littered with energy drink cans, his phone blowing up with hate mail. His latest stream, a half-hearted apology, only fueled the fire. "I didn't know, okay?" he'd said, but the comments tore him apart. "You burned a hero's pin, idiot. Warlock's worth 100 of you." Then a new message popped up, anonymous with a single line. "Check the archives. Nightshade's real." Attached was a redacted Pentagon file, just enough unclassified to confirm a mission in Kandahar, 2003. A team of 6, led by a man codenamed Warlock, had stopped an ambush that would have wiped out an entire platoon. Jace's hands shook as he read. He hadn't just burned a pin. He'd disrespected a legend. Elias crouched in the shadows of an Istanbul alley, the air thick with the smell of diesel and spices. The safe house was a run-down apartment above a butcher shop, its windows dark. He wore a tactical vest under a worn jacket, the bronze star pin clipped to its collar, scorched but intact. His team, 4 operators, young but sharp, waited for his signal. Harper's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Targets inside. 2 guards, armed. You've got 10 minutes before local police get curious." Elias didn't need 10. He moved like a ghost, scaling the fire escape, his bad knee protesting but holding. The guards were sloppy, distracted by a soccer match on a phone. 2 silenced shots and they were down. Inside, Reyes sat at a table, hunched over a laptop. His scar gleamed under the dim bulb. He looked up and for a moment time collapsed. 2 soldiers back in the desert, brothers in arms. "Warlock," Reyes said, his voice hoarse. "Should have known they'd send you." "You selling us out, Marco?" Elias asked, his pistol steady. Reyes laughed, a hollow sound. "Selling? I'm trying to stop it. They got my daughter, Elias. They want Nightshade's playbook, or she's dead. He gestured to a stack of burner phones. I've been feeding them garbage, buying time. Elias lowered his weapon. He saw the truth in Reyes's eyes, the same fire that had kept them alive in Kandahar. Where's your daughter? Warehouse 2 blocks east. 6 men, heavy weapons. I was gonna go in alone. Not alone, Elias said. He keyed his comms. Harper, we've got a new target. Civilian hostage. Prep for exfil. The raid was surgical. Elias and his team moved like a storm, clearing the warehouse in minutes. Reyes's daughter, Maria, was shaken but unharmed. As they loaded her into the exfil van, Reyes gripped Elias's shoulder. You didn't have to come back for me. You'd have done the same, Elias said, handing him the scorched pin. Keep this safe. Weeks later, the diner was packed. A news report played on the TV. Classified mission declassified after 20 years. Warlock and team honored for valor. Clara smiled, setting a fresh coffee at Elias's usual booth, though he hadn't been back. The trucker raised his mug. To quiet heroes, he said. The other patrons joined in, a ripple of respect. Jace, now humbled, posted a final stream. I was wrong, he said, holding up a new bronze star pin he'd bought to replace the one he'd burned. Some stories deserve to be told. He pinned it to a board, next to a photo of Elias from the archives. The video went viral, not for clout, but for redemption. Comments poured in respect. Never judge a book by its cover. Warlock's legacy lives. In a quiet Virginia cemetery, Elias stood before a row of graves, his team from Nightshade. Reyes was there too, Maria at his side. Elias placed the scorched pin on the grass, beside a headstone marked Sergeant Daniel Holt. Rest easy, brother, he said. The wind carried the words away, but the weight in his chest lifted just a fraction. As he walked away, his phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Coffee's waiting, Warlock. Come home. He smiled, the first in years, and kept walking. Elias Kane's story is one of sacrifice, loyalty, and redemption. Who's the quiet hero in your life? Share their story in the comments and honor their legacy. Subscribe to keep these stories alive. Never forget the ones who carry the weight in silence.